Okay. Hello, Nina. Welcome in this series of interviews called I Am, in which I am so glad to have beautiful, unique, original people from all over the world and to present them to our listeners from Romania. And I invite you, our listeners, if you find something insightful, something that is useful in your life, take it, apply it, and also click the link in the description and donate a small amount of money for the hospitals in Romania which are in need. Now, Nina, I will start this interview with a 30-second presentation request. Please tell us in a very short amount of time, who are you?
Well, I am, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm honored.
It's my pleasure.
And people know me as the Inspiration to Creation Coach. I'm one of 800 elite certified high performance coaches working around the world. And I always say that I help my clients achieve more inspired results. I work with people who want to realize their dreams, who want to achieve their potential, fulfill their purpose, live full lives that feed their souls. And I'm also an author coach and a best-selling author, a certified law of attraction coach, a certified rebirther, ordained minister. So I toggle between the writing world and the spiritual and personal growth world.
Beautiful. How would you define a meaningful, fulfilled life? What is that life for you?
So for me, a meaningful, fulfilled life is one where I'm aligned with my higher self and with whatever you want to call the divine energy, creator, where I'm doing meaningful work in the world, which typically means also being aligned with my purpose, my sense of purpose, and being what I call on purpose. So the actions that I take are on purpose. I'm contributing, being of service, sharing my unique gifts with the world. And also where I'm living as fully as possible. So that means, experiencing joy, having some awe for what's out there in the world, gratitude, feeling enthusiastic and energetic, all those types of things.
How did you discover your gifts in your journey till now?
I think my biggest gift is probably writing and communicating, I guess I would say. But I began writing when I was probably, in grade school. And once I got to high school, really began to pursue that. And just knew that's what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to be a novelist because I loved reading novels. Or reading books in general, but my mother dissuaded me from that because she didn't think that, what she told me was that only really, really good writers could make a living as novelists. So she was very practical, and so I decided I still wanted to write, and I took a course in journalism in high school with a very charismatic teacher who showed me that there was a potential to be a writer in the world of journalism. Magazine journalism was what I chose. And so I was reading lots of magazines about, like Self magazine. I don't know if you have that in Romania, but magazines that were sort of about personal growth, how to be better. And when I went to college, I decided, as I said, to be a magazine journalism, and we were required to have a concentration in a subject. And I chose psychology because I always was so interested in people and how they succeeded and why they, what made them tick. And so I think that that in the process of all that, so the writing obviously was already there. I knew that that was one of my gifts. Excuse me. And while in college, the study of psychology really firmed up for me that I really wanted to work with people and help people achieve their higher levels of success. And over the years, that became clearer and clearer. When I finally started dabbling in spirituality and mysticism and metaphysics, I realized I was very intuitive, and that I had an ability to read people and to tap in and really help them level up.
And now, looking back, was there a trigger for you that maybe pushed you towards writing, or was just the pleasure of writing from an early age?
I can't remember anything specifically, except that my parents had a very good friend who was a writer. He had written some books, and we had another family friend who wrote for one of the major TV networks. And so I feel like, and my mother wrote a little bit. She wrote some pieces about birds, actually, for the Audubon Society magazine. And so I think I was just surrounded by writers, and there was definitely a value placed on books. I come from the Jewish tradition where books are definitely, I don't know, it's a stereotypical thing, but, books were valued. And so, I just think that was, I don't know, I just think that was my inclination from, I came with that gift, and it just, I don't know that there was anything in particular except that the environment was conducive.
And when did you start to write your first book?
Oh, that was back in about 2002. I'm going to regress just for a second. I will say that there were some teachers in high school who encouraged me to write. So I had a very good English teacher who had us keep journals, and she would read the journals, like all our private stuff, but she would leave little comments and tell me I was a good writer. Anyway, so that was a little regression. Your question was, when did I start to write my first book? So that was about 2002. I had worked for magazines for many years as an editor and a writer. And I had been approached by a couple people to edit their books. And after doing that, I decided I wanted to write a book of my own. And I started work on a spiritual book. I actually had several ideas all in a row, and began working and began trying to get traditionally published, and didn't happen right away. My first book wasn't published until 2010 and was a totally different book, not anything related to spirituality. So I was published around 2010, but I began 2002. It took me a long time.
But the process gets shorter as the journey goes on, and now you are an author of multiple books. Can you share with us some of the titles of your own books?
Yeah, the traditionally published books are all in the realm of publishing and writing. So the first one was called How to Blog a Book, and the second one was called The Author Training Manual, and the third one is called Creative Visualization for Writers. So that one had a little more of a spiritual twist to it. They all have a little bit of personal development in them. Then I've written a host of ebooks. I have a series called the Write Nonfiction NOW guides. I have a few spiritual books and personal development books, mostly offered on my website at ninaamir.com. These were short versions of longer books I planned to write. And so when I first started out, I know you're involved in speaking. When I first started out, the internet wasn't as big as it is now, and that shows my age. And we were told to go out and speak, but it was hard for me to get speaking gigs without a book. They wanted an author. They didn't want just anyone. I didn't have expertise in the spiritual area. It was just my passion. And so I took these longer book ideas and I condensed them into very short books. Most of them now are ebooks. And I used that as my entry into speaking. But you can find those on my website. There are a couple of them on Amazon. I think 2 are on Amazon. But anyway, so yeah, gets easier. And I have a lot of books out there. I have one now that's taking a very long time to sell. It's going to be traditionally published. And environment's different, many more requirements for writers these days.
And if you would give us a sort of advice for someone who wants to take his passion and transform it into expertise, how would you advise a person to follow his purpose and to go out and show his expertise and his knowledge, even if he hasn't a book already published, let's say?
Yeah. So first of all, I would talk about purpose, and that because for me, I got very off purpose. So I had a literary agent who took me on for a spiritual book. And when that didn't sell immediately, she asked me to write some books about writing and publishing because that was my area of expertise. And she thought it would be easier to publish that sort of book. And so I took her advice, and it was good advice. It got me published. I have books out there. I became an expert in the world of blogging and writing and publishing. But it took me, because you promote those books, it took me off purpose. I had to spend 10, 15 years working on building up an audience and promoting these books and being this expert that wasn't who I set out to be, right? I set out to be a spiritual writer, someone who wrote, spoke, trained, coached on spiritual and personal growth. So first, know what your purpose is and follow that. And if you're struggling to take action, I would say, what I always talk about is that you have to combine that sense of purpose. And you can choose your purpose. Some people say, I don't know what my purpose is. So choose something that's important to you, that you value, and combine that with your passion. Like, you have to be passionate about it. So what happened for me after a while is I began to lose the passion for what I was doing because I wasn't on purpose. I wasn't doing what I was meant to do. And so you want to combine it with your passion, because when that happens, you get inspired. And when you get inspired, you know what the next inspired step is for you to take. And so you take inspired action. And I always say that's when you get inspired results. The process will go much more quickly and easily when you're taking inspired action. So that's number one. Number two, if you're not an expert on something yet, you have to remember that in these days, it's very easy to become an expert on just about anything that you are passionate about and that is your purpose. I always recommend that you start by blogging. I would create a website and I would begin a blog and I would start to blog. We can do something called authority blogging. So if you're going to write about something, you're not a novelist, let's say, you're writing nonfiction. You could be a novelist who has a very strong sense of purpose and you could still apply what I'm going to say. But what you would do is you write about the same topics that are going to be in your books, right? Because you want to talk about that subject. And the more often you publish a blog post about your subject, the faster Google figures out what you're talking about, like what you're writing about. And it pushes you up in the search engine results pages. And when you have that kind of visibility, you begin to be seen as an expert. So if somebody like you is looking for an expert on something, right, you're going to search for it on Google and you're going to see who comes up. So if you come up in that first page of the Google search results, then you're considered an expert. It's kind of wild, but it's true. So when I started a blog called How to Blog a Book, where I was teaching people how to blog a book, how to write their book on their blog, post by post. And I published posts 4 to 5 times a week. And that's all I talked about was blogging books, blog a book, blogging, blog to book deals, blogging, how to blog a book, how to blog a book. And in 5 months, I had the #1 spot on Google when you did a search. And so I was the expert. I just became the expert immediately. And so I always say that you need to start a blog, start writing about what's important to you, and then you share those blog posts on social media. The more you're in front of people, the more you will be seen as an expert.
How can you think and design a blog post in order to be engaging and to gather an active community around your blog?
Yeah, that's that's a big topic. You have to know your audience well and what they need and want, and you need to obviously write posts on topics they're interested in. You have to be a little vulnerable. You know, I've learned over the years to tell more stories. So, you know, typically you need to have a first paragraph and, well, a title and a first paragraph that are very compelling, but that also are to the point, because Google wants to know in that first paragraph what you're writing about. But then you can tell a story. And if you begin to share yourself and write about things that resonate with your audience, they're going to begin to share those posts with their friends. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to it. There's, you know, using bullet points. People tend to scan blog posts, and so you will need to use some bullet points and headlines, and always have an image. I use what I call quote cards. So I always choose an image that relates to the blog post, but then I write something over that, and, you know, so that it can be shared. There's a lot to it.
And when you write a book, let's say, what does the process of writing do for you as a person? What are your own benefits of from writing, taking out?
Interesting question. So the benefits for me in the writing process are the exploration of the topic. You know, if it's something that I'm passionate about, then you know, I get a chance to deep dive into that, right? To really explore it. The books that I've started that still are, you know, need to come, they're not done yet, have been topics that really were super interesting to me. And so the process of working on that book then means that I get to research it. Maybe I get to interview some interesting people who, you know, increase my knowledge. It's a chance for me also to tap into that higher self and to that universal knowledge, because I've found that when I'm really writing about something that is aligned with me and my purpose, information just flows through me. Like, there are things that come through. I put pieces together that I hadn't previously put together. And so that's super rewarding to feel as if, you know, you're bringing something new into the world that wasn't there before. And then, of course, there's the sense of satisfaction and fulfillment that comes with having gotten something down on paper that other people can use. And I think that's probably the ultimate thing for me, is that I'm serving other people, you know, that I'm actually doing something that is a contribution and leaves a legacy of contribution. So I think that's probably the biggest part, is that it is fulfilling my purpose.
When you are in the creative process, or even when you are working on your coach area, or in that law of attraction area, how does inspiration come to you?
Inspiration comes to me in all kinds of ways. It comes to me from conversations. I was having a conversation with one of my coaches, and we were talking about the owls, the baby owlets that are in my yard. And I said, and she was encouraging me to write something in a different vein. And so we were talking about writing a personal essay. And, you know, as I was sharing about these owls, and that so we have these two baby owlets in our great horned owls. I know you know that, but your audience doesn't. So we have these two baby great horned owls. Very rare to see them, and to see them getting fed and their parents coming, and just to hear them calling. And anyway, so I've been very obsessed with these owlets. And then I realized that I was talking to this coach, and I said, you know, about a little over a year ago, I asked for a sign about starting a program I wanted to start, a coaching program or membership program. And I said to the universe, or to God, I said, you know, if I'm supposed to do this, show me an owl. And it took me, I was in Germany at the time, and there was a big Christmas fair, and I thought for sure I'd see an owl there. And for days I didn't. And one day I walked in, and there's this booth full of owls, like all these different types of owl ornaments, actually Christmas ornaments. And after that, I saw owls everywhere in this Christmas festival and all over town. And I totally forgot about it, because I started the program, and then I put it on the back burner. And I said, I'm not going to do it right now. And so this is a very long story to answer your question. But anyway, so I'm talking to this coach and I start talking about, I said, I was watching a TV show and I saw this owl, like a stuffed animal owl. And I suddenly remembered that I asked for this sign. And now I have these owls and we never see great horned owls. Like we're always wishing we could hear them, but we don't see them. And suddenly we were finding them everywhere, like the parents, just everywhere. And I said, so inspiration. As I was talking to my friend, I thought, I was thinking I could write something about the owls, but now I know what I can write. I can write a personal essay about how I asked for this sign. And here, just when I wanted to start working on this program again, we had these baby owls. So inspiration came in the moment of putting pieces together. I think that's part of it, having a conversation, remembering, and you put pieces together. But I think that it also comes from that passion and purpose piece. I think when one of the books that I have a very short version of it has to do with Kabbalah and the law of attraction. And I was just so intent on finding the law of attraction within the Jewish mystical tradition, because at the time I was very immersed in Judaism. Today I'm much more eclectic, but I was kind of eclectic then too. But anyway, I was like, I have to find it in here. And it was that desire to do that sparked this whole idea that was like a download of information. So I think it just comes from following your interests and following your passion and your purpose, and by talking to people and learning and all of that. So it was a very long way around to say that, but it comes from all over the place. And sometimes you feel like you have none, and then you sit down and you just say, I'm going to write something, and it comes anyway.
So your favorite method, let's say, of depassing a creative block would be?
Is to be consistent in your practice. So whether you're painting, writing music, writing a book, anything at all, anything creative where you feel blocked, I think you have to sit down and do that creative activity every day. I can't remember who it was, whether it was Steinbeck or some great author said something along the lines of, every day I wait for inspiration. Luckily, when I sit down at my desk at 9 a.m., it always comes. And I think that's it's a butchering of that quote, but I think that's really it. You have to have a consistent artistic practice so that you are inspired, but you also have to feed your soul. And this is super important. I think for quite a number of years, I felt kind of devoid of new ideas, like not as inspired. And I realized that I was doing a lot of putting out and not a lot of putting in. And so there's that saying that you have to fill your well, right? I like to talk about feeding your soul. And so I think that if you're not putting good stuff in, what is it, the GIGO, right? Good stuff in, good stuff out, right? So you have to have good input. So you have to be learning. You have to be doing things you're passionate about. You need to be having some fun. You need to be having some downtime. You need to be talking to people, going places. And I think that's how you remove your blocks, is to get outside of your normal way of being and make sure you're always giving yourself things that really feed your soul.
Mm-hmm. And in your personal life, what feeds your soul most?
So the biggest thing that feeds my soul probably is learning. Like I always say, I'm always joking that it's fun for me to go to a seminar, right? That's fun. So yeah, when I'm learning things that really resonate with me, something spiritual, that feeds my soul. Being with like-minded people and discussing things that are important to me, like discussing spiritual topics or personal growth, being with people, like I love going to seminars because I get to go with, like, as a high performance coach, I very often go to events with other where there are a lot of high performance coaches and other people who are interested in personal growth and spiritual growth. And when you get in a room with those kind of people, the energy is amazing and the conversations are amazing. That feeds my soul enormously. So that has to do also with just being around people who you can be learning and lifting each other up, right? Conversations that are lifting me up. It feeds my soul to read. It feeds my soul to be in nature. It feeds my soul to care for myself, you know, to meditate, to exercise, all of the things, to be around animals, you know.
I know you are fond of you are very fond of nature. How did that happen? It was something from your childhood, or it was something in your adult life?
No, definitely from my mother. My mother was an avid gardener, or is, well, she can't garden anymore, but she was an avid gardener. She was an avid bird watcher. She loved animals, except for the squirrels and the deer, because they were a nuisance. But yeah, I think I probably got that from her early on.
Now, getting on that personal development side, the power of habits is enormous in our lives. What good habits do you have in yours that gets you great relationships, that gets you moving towards that goal that you want and establish for yourself? What can we take from you in our lives to get faster toward that successful life and fulfilled life that we all want?
So you touched on relationships, habits related to relationships. I think the biggest habit with relationships that I've adopted over the last few years is to be present. So we have a habit of, you know, always having our phone, or we're at our computer, and of not, you know, we're just always doing other things, watching TV or something, and people around us are trying to talk to us, and we don't disengage from the other stuff we're doing to be present. And so, for instance, my husband often works in the house with me, and he'll come in and I'll be working and he'll want to talk to me. And what I used to do, I would be kind of working and listening, right? I'd be distracted. And I know we do this with our children, right? We're making dinner or we're doing something and they're wanting to talk to us and we're not paying 100% attention. So I now stop. Like if my husband comes in, I'll say, could you wait 1 minute or come back in 5 minutes? Then I can talk to you. And so I actually put boundary around it and say, okay, I'm going to finish this and then I will be present with you and I will really listen and I will be there. That makes a huge difference in your relationships. As for regular, you know, normal goals, on a kind of more spiritual level, I do spend some time visualizing what I want, I think about it a lot, but I try to push myself into the future and seeing myself have accomplished it, because then I can believe it more, right? Because if we stay in the past, so this is a habitual way of thinking, is we tend to be in the past thinking about what happened previously. And so we're really not in the moment, and we're not focused on believing in a positive future. And so for me, that's a habit, is to be always, you know, try to stay present, but also be looking to the future in a way that I can believe that it can happen, if that makes sense. I'm a big planner. I didn't used to be, but I have discovered over the years that the best way to achieve your goals is to plan. And so you really have to sit down and say, what are my goals? What does it take to achieve them? You know, what do I need to learn? What do I need to do? What's the time frame for that? And map it all out and get it on a calendar. Because if you don't have any deadlines, it's never going to happen. A lot of people don't like deadlines, but without them, we tend to just coast along and not work, not challenge ourselves. I think you have to have goals that are meaningful to you. So a lot of people will pick a goal of just, I want to earn more money, and it's meaningful only in the sense that they'll be able to pay their rent, right? It's not meaningful on a soul level. And so I think you have to pick goals that are meaningful to you, because otherwise, why would you bother? Like, there is no why, there's no reason to do, so you want to have, again, combine that purpose and passion for something so it's meaningful to you. So I think that, for me personally, I have to have goals that mean something to me, that are, if it's just about the money or about the, getting published, it's not the same as wanting to create a program that resonates with me and helps me fulfill my purpose, so that, I'll be making money. I need to make money, but I'll be doing something that's aligned. And so pick goals that are aligned with who you are and your purpose and your values, so that you have more inclination to take action on them. And then I think you have to develop a habit of influencing yourself, because the biggest problem with goals is that we give up on them. We don't influence ourselves in a way that we take consistent action, right? So, Tony Robbins will say that your destiny is formed by making a decision and taking massive action towards it. So that every decision moves you forward, but you have to take massive action. So if you're not influencing yourself to take that action, that's the problem. And habits don't form overnight. People will say 30, 40 days. Sometimes it can take you well over 100 days, 200 days. So you can't give up. You have to develop a chain. So like you get on a calendar and X marks the spot for, today I worked on my book, or today I worked on, my business, or today I worked on my health, whatever your goal is. And you keep the chain going, because as soon as you break it, then there's less likelihood of you continuing forward. But I really think that one of the biggest problems, like people have New Year's resolutions, and those are their goals, but they're resolutions. They're resolved to do it. Well, when you're resolved to do something, yes, you've kind of decided you're going to do it, but not from a positive place, right? It's not the same as intentionally committing to something that has meaning for you. So I think that's a big one. So be consistent, pick goals that are meaningful to you, and influence yourself to keep going, and in whatever way you have to, whether that's a reward system or accountability buddy or whatever it is. But I think those are some of the big ones.
So purpose and meaning are the main ingredients for having that motivation to go on. What you mentioned already two methods of of growing this motivation, with an accountability partner and with rewards. Do you have other ways of keeping you motivated than checking the days, the habits in each everyday schedule?
I think probably the biggest one, excuse me, is to remember your aspirations. So a goal is one thing, but an aspiration is another, like an aspirational goal. That's who you want to be, right? So I think you have to remember who you want to be. And so things like deciding on words that would describe yourself. Like if somebody were to describe you 3 years from now or 5 years from now, how would you want to be described? Like, who do you want to be? And then every day, remind yourself of those words, of that description, and ask yourself if you're living into that. Are you showing up that way today? Because I think that what happens is we get very stuck. So we're either living a life where we feel caged. We're stuck, there's no way out, right? We think we've tried everything and there's no way out of it. Or we're living a comfortable life. Most of us have areas of our lives where we're stuck and areas of our life where we're comfortable. And that comfortable life, we know there's something more, but we're not actually ready to go for it because we're comfortable and we're not sure it's going to be so comfortable on the other side. And indeed, when we change, when we challenge ourselves, it's uncomfortable. We have to get out of our comfort zone. So I think that to influence yourself, you have to have, again, that future vision of who I can be. Who am I meant to be? And it goes back to purpose. What am I meant to do here in this lifetime? Am I meant to be a couch potato, right? Being comfortable. I went to work, I came back, I sat down at, in front of the TV, and that's all there is. Or am I meant for more? And I think everybody at their core knows they're meant for more. And it doesn't have to be some big, huge aspiration, but it's something that they know that they could be more, do more, have more, in a way that's contributing to others, not just for themselves. And when you begin to tap into that, it's much easier to get out of that comfortable place and to move towards your aspirations, to become that person, to start being that person now, so that you are able to attract or create or build whatever it is you want for the future. So I know that sounds kind of amorphous, but I think you have to have that aspiration for yourself. And that's going to help influence you to keep moving. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. In attracting the good end results that we want, what are your practices, or what do you recommend for people who want to start in this area?
In actually attracting?
Mm-hmm.
So number one, you have to have a lot of clarity on what it is you want. Most of us are super focused on what we don't want and don't know what we do want. We know what makes us unhappy, but we're not sure what makes us happy. So you have to get clear on what it is you want. And then there's the classic law of attraction stuff of, know what you have clarity of what you want, and then visualize it while feeling what it would be like to have it. So that's sort of that belief in the future, right? I know what I want to create, and I can see it and I can feel it. And so that makes it more tangible, right? Plus you align your energy with it. So you have to be aligned with your energy. And part of the problem tends to be that we have a lot of subconscious things happening, right? We think, I don't know what it is, like 80,000 thoughts a day or something, and most of them are repetitive and negative. So, and a lot of them we don't even know we're thinking them, right? So we have to, and what that does is it changes our energy. So if we have a negative mental chatter going on all the time, we're going to have a negative energy, and that's harder to attract. So you want to start doing the things, even if you don't know what you're thinking. If you feel that your energy is negative, your emotional energy, your physical energy is low, your mental energy is low or negative, you have to start doing things that raise that, right? So you have to start, whatever it is, go pet the dog, take a nap, go for a walk, go play tennis if that makes you happy. Just do something that changes your energy to a more positive energy. Then you really have to take action. So this goes back to the planning, because what people don't talk about when it comes to attracting is that we live in a physical world. That's why energy is important, because everything is energy, right? But we also are in a physical world where we have to take physical action. If we're not taking physical actions, nothing's going to happen. So physical action can be visualizing, but it can also be, making a phone call, doing some work, whatever. So we have to actually do something. So I believe that when you go if you start with your purpose, so that's also, I didn't say, I would start with purpose. Like, what is it you want to create that aligns with your purpose? Because purpose tends to be more about contributing to others. It's not just about us. And so start there with, what do I want to create that has to do with my purpose? Get the clarity, do the visualizing and the feeling. And from there, get that sense of what your next inspired action is. Because when you take the inspired action, not that just the action you should take, you're more likely to begin to attract what you want. But then go out in the world and do what you need to do to make that happen. Don't expect for, the car you want to be put, in your driveway. That's probably not going to happen unless you're a master, right? So And then it's the same thing I talked about, like with the aspiration. Who do you want to be? If you want to be the owner of, the CEO of your own company, you have to begin showing up like somebody who could be the CEO of their own company, even if you don't have your own company yet. It has to become who you are. And so I love Jack Canfield, if you know who he is. He used to have an event, and he was the chicken soup of the soul guy, and he wrote a bunch of books on law of attraction. And he would do this event, and he would have people come to this party as who they wanted to be. So they would dress as that person, and they would carry themselves as that person. It's amazing. That's what you have to do every day. You have to show up that way. So if you show up to your desk every day in sweatpants and a t-shirt, but you want to be the next, Oprah Winfrey, that's probably not going to work for you very well. Right?
Yeah, it's a good idea to embody that person that you want to be,
Yes.
and to give yourself a party.
Yes.
Joyful practice. So what is that thing or that person in your life for which you are most grateful for?
Person I'm most grateful for. That's a tough one. I'm very grateful to my husband for supporting what I do and creating the space for me to do my work, which hasn't always been as profitable, but has fed my soul. And I'm grateful for all the people who encouraged me to write and to get out there with that. And and I have a couple of really good friends who've always been there for me and supported me and told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. So yeah, that would be it.
Do you have powerful limiting belief that you have the past?
That I have gotten past?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think everybody at some level has the belief I'm not enough or I'm not good enough. And I work with that a lot. Trying to think of one I've actually gotten past. I mean, I work with negative beliefs a lot. One I've actually gotten past. Probably I'm not an expert. Because that, early on, I think even with the writing and publishing, I didn't feel I was an expert. And as I said, with the how to blog a book idea, I very quickly became an expert, and that made me an expert in all kinds of things that I never imagined I'd be an expert in, like blogging and marketing. And then the books that followed made me an expert in, nonfiction writing and publishing. And I've had to recently, so when I was younger and I was wanting to do the spiritual books, which I still want to write, the spiritual and personal growth books, I had a lot of confidence that I knew something, right? But over the years, because I went on this other trajectory, that came back. That went away, and what replaced it was that I'm not an expert in these topics. Because the publishing industry would tell me that you don't have, that's not your area of expertise. Who are you to write about these things, and you don't have a big enough audience, and so that can be very that pushed or I guess raised up that thought that I'm not an expert again. And so that's just in the last, I would say 6 months, I've dropped that and said, no, that's not true. I have all these things I know more than other people, not everyone, but even if I'm one step ahead of somebody in terms of what I know, I still have something to offer, and it still makes me an expert of some type, right? So I think that's probably one for sure. And remembering something just along with that, and I know that you're involved in storytelling. There's a mystical this isn't really a story, but it's a mystical lesson that if you know something, then it's your obligation to share it, because we all stand on a stairway, right? And if I'm on this step and I know this much and I don't share it with the next person, the people behind me can't move up, because as soon as I share, I move up a step, and then the person behind me can move up a step. And so to rid myself of that thought that I'm not an expert, I don't have anything to share, the old imposter syndrome, right? I have to share. And so in the last 6 to 9 months, I've begun to share again. And that immediately quiets that voice that says you're not an expert. So I hope that served.
What is your most cherished memory from your early childhood?
Well, a lot of memories pop up. Probably memories I have around horseback riding. I began riding my father died when I was 7, and not long after that, a friend invited me to go riding, and that set me on a course for my whole life of being an equestrian. And so probably those times, horseback riding and showing, and my mom going with shows to shows with me, and I think probably that.
Beautiful. And your biggest quality, Nina, what would be?
My biggest quality. I think my ability to tap when I'm working with somebody or speaking with someone to really tap into where they are, to who they are, and to understand and be able to see them as who they can be. So, like yesterday I was working with someone, and he's talking, and to just say, hey, those are really all excuses. Like, so if you stopped having those excuses, what would change? How would you do that? How would you see the world? So that sort of, I can see what's happening for someone, and to see their next level, to see who they really are. I think maybe that's the way to say it, to see who they really are, and the potential for them to show up and to fulfill their potential and their purpose.
Thank you. It was such a joy to have you in this interview. And now when we have reached the finish line, I ask you please to complete the sentence, me, Nina, I am, with one word.
I am spirit.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank you.
A beautiful interview, and it was a pleasure for me to have this discussion with you. I will keep in touch, and we will give our listeners the links to connect with you and to see your books and your activity as a coach. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. My pleasure.